consciousness, and that was beautifully weaved together. So thank you again. Just one more presentation before we have a little round table. So over to you, Nandana, and welcome, and thanks again.
Thank you, Sean, for this opportunity. I'm mainly going to respond to your prompts. The Indian film industry, as you may know, has suffered three great losses. So there's been enormous amount of fan communion in the mourning of the death of the stars Irfan Khan, Rishi Kapoor, and more recently the tragic suicide of a very young star at the age of 34. And so this has sort of opened up a veritable Pandora's box on the politics that underlie the dark underbelly of Indian the film industry, the nepotism, various scams, lobbying groups, and also has highlighted the insecurities and the vulnerability of stars and celebrities when they are locked away in this pandemic. And so what has happened is there's been a lot of petitions now on trolling and a lot of emphasis on the mental health crisis, because this latest star, Sushant Singh Rajput, was supposed to have been clinically depressed. And so this is something that is a stigma in Indian society and has just not been addressed at all. And so this is a period of introspection, of recrimination, of a lot of trolling, and they're certainly not polite. Respected filmmakers have been calling out the insiders. So the film industry, Indian film industry, is known for some heavyweights who have who are born into the film industry. They are from a film family, and it just grows and grows. And so the Indian film industry is a veritable nexus of various kinship structures. They're all intermarry. So it becomes fairly difficult for an outsider like Sushant Singh Rajput to come in and yet to make his way. And so there's been a lot of this, the terminology of outsiders and insiders being used, and respected filmmakers, coming out for the first time talking about this nepotism and saying that outsiders need double the talent and hard work to make it, rather than these often fairly untalented but insiders who are part of the establishment. So that's one thing, that there's been a lot more focus on mental health crisis and fairly insensitive coverage of the latest star's death, which goes back to what happened with Sridevi a couple of years ago when she was suddenly found dead in a bathtub in Dubai. So very much, we're seeing stars struggling with negotiating the vicissitudes of stardom. Again, a critical aspect is Bollywood so-called hypocrisy on calling out racism in the US and the Black Lives Matter, tweeting about it, being very, very active on social media channels, but yet on the other hand remaining silent about all the problems that India has, the caste system particularly, racism of course, and various other major social issues. But on a more cheerful note, there are a couple of celebrities who've been doing a lot of good work in trying to send a lot of migrants. I don't know if you've read this, but we've had an enormous issue with migrant laborers, and because they need to go back to where they live, and India is a huge country. And so certain stars, particularly one called Sonu Sood, who has been extremely helpful and doing the job of what governments should be doing, transporting lakhs of people, I mean thousands, and it seems like lakhs on Instagram because everything is so amplified. So that's, and a lot of charity work, a lot of online, how to keep fit and all of that. And, so you've asked whether they've misread the room. And if they have, they've done it inadvertently, because we realize just how out of touch these celebrities and stars are from ordinary people. And so it has highlighted their privilege, their bubble that they live in. And very sheltered, very privileged. We've taken a peek into the glamorous interiors of their homes. And so, you see the luxurious homes, and all the hobbies that they have picked up. the artwork that they keep sharing. Some of them have been quite hilarious. Some have never washed dishes, or they've forgotten how to wash dishes. So something very mundane like that. So they're reminding us of how to properly wash dishes. This is another thing which is quite unique to India. Most families, particularly middle-class families, and of course celebrities, have a retinue of staff, domestic staff. And so we realize just how privileged they are, because they've forgotten to say clean the house, do the vacuuming, or all of that. So that just highlights more just the gap between the celebrities and their celestial world and the fans, and some who've been dying on the roads just trying to go back home, and enormously sharp divisions of the have and the have-nots. So they've been sharing a lot of their hobbies, the painting, singing, of course, gym and the working out, the fitness kind of craze that India has been under for the past 20 years since globalization. And so there's been, unfortunately, right now, because this star killed himself on Sunday, so we are seeing that kind of repercussion, that kind of backlash. And finally, to sort of end quickly, have they spoken for or against the imagination? I would say that it has been basically a matter of personal branding. So because they're so insecure, many of them are out of work. They don't know when they're going to go back to work. Many of their projects have been shelved. The financiers are probably not there. And so, it's been about being in the spotlight, because of how competitive and cutthroat the competition is, with the availability of 24/7 social media, a lot of use of TikTok, which is very popular in India. And by and large, I think they've maintained the status quo. I mean, Indian film stars do not speak against the nation and speak against the government particularly, and unlike Hollywood, and very, very vocal against the current president. And so they've done whatever they could to maintain their status and feed their insecurities and their vulnerabilities. So that's a bit from India at the moment.
Wow, that was quite powerful. I found that quite moving at times, Nandana. Thank you ever so much. I do appreciate it.